In a world where online shopping has become commonplace, most of us limit our digital purchases to clothes, electronics, or household items. But in 2011, one man redefined the boundaries of e-commerce in a way that still astounds us today. This is the remarkable story of Vasiliy Pashkevich, a Russian businessman who didn't just add a train set to his online cart. He purchased an entire, functional freight train worth $70 million with the click of a button. Join us as we explore this extraordinary tale that challenges our understanding of what's possible in the digital marketplace and reveals the complex world of international logistics operating behind the scenes of unusual purchases. Before we dive into the details of this incredible transaction, let's meet the visionary behind it. Vasiliy Pashkevich wasn't just any casual online shopper. He was a seasoned businessman with a deep-rooted passion for railroads, having built his career working with railway components and parts. His expertise in the industry gave him unique insights into the value and potential of railroad equipment that most would overlook. Pashkevich's background had prepared him to recognize opportunity where others might see only obstacles. His professional experience had familiarized him with the intricacies of rail systems, the technical specifications that matter, and the true value of well-maintained equipment. This knowledge would prove invaluable when making such an unconventional purchase, allowing him to assess the train's condition and compatibility with existing rail infrastructure in ways that an ordinary buyer simply couldn't. The story of this extraordinary purchase begins like many others, with a casual browsing session. One day in 2011, while exploring an online platform specializing in heavy machinery and industrial equipment, Pashkevich came across something that stopped him in his tracks. A complete freight train listed for sale. Most people would have scrolled past such an unusual listing, assuming it was either a mistake or simply beyond the realm of possibility for an individual buyer. But Pashkevich's reaction was different. Where others might have seen an impractical fantasy, he recognized a legitimate opportunity. The listing included detailed specifications of the train, its operational history, and current condition, all indicators that this was a serious offer. Despite the unconventional nature of the item, the platform treated it like any other piece of heavy equipment, available to the highest bidder with the means to complete the transaction. For Pashkevich, what began as routine online browsing quickly transformed into a serious business consideration that would eventually lead to one of the most unusual e-commerce stories ever documented. Unlike purchasing everyday items online, acquiring a freight train involved complex negotiations that would span several weeks. After his initial discovery, Pashkevich immediately contacted the seller to express his interest and begin discussions. The negotiation process was far from simple. It required detailed conversations about the train's technical specifications, its operational history, maintenance records, and compatibility with Russian rail systems. Price considerations were naturally at the forefront of these discussions. The approximately $70 million price tag wasn't just for the physical train itself, but encompassed a package that included various components, spare parts, and certain technical support arrangements. Each aspect required careful evaluation and negotiation. The seller, likely expecting interest from railway companies or government entities rather than an individual, had to adjust their approach to accommodate Pashkevich's unique situation. Documentation requirements were extensive, involving technical certifications, ownership transfers, and export permissions that aren't typically part of everyday online purchases. After weeks of back-and-forth communications, detailed inspections of documentation, and financial arrangements, both parties finally reached an agreement. The deal was structured to address the complexities of transferring ownership of such a massive piece of infrastructure across international boundaries, with payment schedules and delivery terms carefully outlined to protect both buyer and seller. Once the purchase agreement was finalized, Pashkevich faced his next major challenge, navigating the labyrinth of bureaucratic requirements necessary to transport his new acquisition. Moving a freight train across international borders isn't simply a matter of arranging shipping, it requires extensive governmental approvals and permits. The first hurdle involved securing export permissions from the country of origin. This meant dealing with customs authorities, transportation ministries, and various regulatory bodies, each with their own requirements and procedures. Next came the equally complex process of obtaining import permits for Russia. Russian authorities needed to verify that the train met all national safety standards, technical requirements, and environmental regulations before allowing it to enter the country and operate on Russian rails. Pashkevich had to engage with multiple levels of government, from local municipalities to federal agencies. The paperwork alone was staggering. Thousands of pages of applications, certifications, technical specifications, and legal documents needed to be prepared, submitted, reviewed, and approved. To navigate this bureaucratic maze, Pashkevich assembled a team of legal experts specializing in international transportation law and import regulations. Their expertise proved invaluable in identifying requirements, preparing documentation, and developing strategies to address potential roadblocks. The process was further complicated by changing regulations and political considerations. Each delay required adjustments to the transportation timeline and coordination with all parties involved. Despite these challenges, Pashkevich's team methodically worked through each requirement, gradually accumulating the necessary approvals to move forward with the ambitious project. With permits secured, Pashkevich faced perhaps the most daunting challenge yet: physically moving an entire freight train across vast distances to its final destination in Russia. This wasn't simply a matter of driving the train to its new home. The logistics involved were mind-bogglingly complex. First, there was the issue of incompatible rail gauges between different countries. Many nations used different track widths, meaning the train couldn't simply be driven across all borders. At certain points, specialized equipment was needed to adapt the train to different rail systems. Then came the coordination of the actual movement. This required securing time slots on busy rail networks across multiple countries, each with their own scheduling systems and priorities. The train's journey had to be meticulously planned to avoid disruptions to regular rail traffic while ensuring efficient progress. Political tensions between certain countries along the route added another layer of complexity. In some cases, alternative routes had to be developed to bypass areas where diplomatic issues might cause delays or complications. Throughout the journey, the train required constant monitoring and occasional maintenance to ensure it remained in good condition. Specialized teams were stationed at key points along the route to address any mechanical issues that might arise. The transportation also required coordination with local authorities at each border crossing and in each new territory the train entered. Police escorts were sometimes necessary for certain segments of the journey. Despite multiple delays and unexpected challenges, the carefully orchestrated logistics plan ultimately succeeded. After months of movement across thousands of kilometers, crossing multiple borders and navigating various rail systems, the train finally approached its destination in Russia. The movement of Pashkevich's train required unprecedented levels of international coordination across multiple countries, each with their own regulations, political considerations, and economic interests. This aspect of the project evolved into a complex diplomatic dance that few private purchases ever encounter. Transit agreements had to be negotiated with each country along the route. These weren't simply technical arrangements, but often became matters of diplomatic discussion, especially in regions where cross-border relations were already tense. In some cases, the movement of such valuable equipment required security guarantees and special arrangements that elevated the matter to higher governmental levels. Ongoing political tensions between various countries along the planned route created additional complications. In some instances, last-minute route changes became necessary when diplomatic situations deteriorated, requiring rapid replanning and new permit applications. The timing couldn't have been more challenging. The 2011 period saw significant political realignments and tensions across several regions involved in the train's journey. Economic sanctions, changing trade agreements, and shifting alliances all had potential impacts on the project. Pashkevich and his team had to maintain constant awareness of the geopolitical landscape, sometimes delaying movement when tensions flared or accelerating it when diplomatic windows opened. To navigate these complexities, Pashkevich relied not only on logistics experts, but also on consultants with diplomatic experience who could help anticipate political complications and develop strategies to address them. Their insights proved invaluable in avoiding potential pitfalls that could have derailed the entire project. Despite these challenges, the international coordination efforts ultimately succeeded through a combination of careful planning, diplomatic sensitivity, and the ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. After months of complex logistics, negotiations, and transit across multiple countries, the day of delivery finally arrived. The train reached Russian territory and approached its final destination, a moment that must have seemed almost surreal after such a long and complicated journey. But the process wasn't complete yet. Before Pashkevich could truly claim ownership and begin operations, the train had to undergo rigorous testing and inspection. A team of railway engineers and technical specialists was assembled to conduct a comprehensive assessment of every aspect of the train. This inspection was far more detailed than the preliminary evaluations conducted during the purchase negotiations. Now, with the train physically present, every component could be thoroughly examined. The inspection process took several weeks and covered everything from the mechanical systems and structural integrity to the electrical components and safety features. Each car was examined individually, and the locomotive underwent particularly intensive testing. Any components that showed excessive wear or potential issues were identified for replacement or repair. The testing phase was equally thorough. The train was put through operational trials to verify its performance under various conditions. These tests evaluated factors like braking efficiency, power output, fuel consumption, and overall reliability. Throughout this process, Pashkevich worked closely with the technical team, applying his knowledge of railway systems to understand the findings and make informed decisions about necessary modifications or upgrades. Finally, after addressing all identified issues and completing all required testing, the train was officially declared operational and ready for service. What had begun as an unusual online purchase had transformed into a fully functional addition to Russia's rail transport capacity, ready to fulfill its intended purpose under its new ownership. The $70 million price tag for the train was just the beginning of Pashkevich's financial commitment to this extraordinary venture. The total investment ultimately encompassed much more than the initial purchase price. Beyond the cost of the train itself, Pashkevich had to factor in substantial expenses for transportation logistics, which included specialized equipment for moving the train across different rail gauges, transit fees for each country, and the costs of the logistics teams that coordinated the journey. Legal and regulatory compliance added another significant layer of expenses. The numerous permits, certifications, and approvals all came with their own fees, not to mention the costs of the legal experts needed to navigate these requirements. Once the train arrived in Russia, additional investments were necessary. The inspection process, testing procedures, and subsequent modifications or repairs all required financial resources. Specialized parts sometimes needed to be manufactured or imported at considerable expense. Despite these enormous costs, Pashkevich approached the purchase as a business investment rather than a curiosity or hobby. His background in the railway industry gave him insight into the potential return on investment that others might have missed. Freight trains can generate substantial revenue through their operational lifespan, which often extends for decades with proper maintenance. In Russia's vast territory, where rail remains a critical transportation method for many goods, a well-maintained freight train can be a valuable asset. Pashkevich's calculations likely included projections for freight contracts, operational costs, maintenance requirements, and the train's expected service life. While the specific financial details of his business plan weren't made public, the fact that he proceeded with such a massive investment suggests he identified a viable economic opportunity that justified the extraordinary costs and efforts involved. When news of Pashkevich's unusual purchase began to circulate, it captured the attention of media outlets and the public in ways that few e-commerce stories ever do. The sheer scale and uniqueness of buying an entire freight train online made it a natural human interest story that resonated across borders. Initial media reports often focused on the novelty aspect, the idea that someone could simply order something as massive as a train through an online platform seemed almost like science fiction to many readers. Headlines emphasized the contrast between everyday online shopping and this extraordinary purchase. As the story developed, coverage expanded to include the logistical challenges and the complex international coordination required to complete the delivery. Business publications analyzed the transaction as a case study in extreme e-commerce and international logistics. Railway industry publications took particular interest in the technical aspects of the purchase and the implications for private ownership of major rail assets. The public reaction ranged from amazement to skepticism. Some questioned whether such a purchase was even possible, while others were inspired by the ambition and vision demonstrated by Pashkevich. Online forums and social media platforms buzzed with discussions about what other unexpected items might be available for purchase online. For Pashkevich himself, the media attention was likely a mixed blessing. While it brought recognition for his achievement, it also meant increased scrutiny of his business operations. Nevertheless, the publicity helped establish him as an innovative figure in the transportation industry and potentially opened doors for future business opportunities. The story's viral nature also served as an unusual form of advertising for the online platform where the purchase originated, highlighting the extensive range of items available through modern e-commerce channels. Pashkevich's remarkable purchase did more than just make headlines. It fundamentally challenged conventional assumptions about the limits of e-commerce and online transactions. Before this story, most people associated online shopping with consumer goods, digital products, or perhaps specialized industrial components, but certainly not entire transportation systems. This transaction demonstrated that virtually anything can be bought and sold online given the right platform, expertise, and resources. It expanded our collective understanding of what's possible in the digital marketplace. The purchase highlighted how e-commerce had evolved from its humble beginnings to encompass even the most complex industrial transactions. What made this possible was not just the listing platform, but the sophisticated ecosystem of services that had developed around online commerce, from secure payment processing for enormous sums to digital contract management and international logistics coordination. For businesses and entrepreneurs, this story opened new horizons for considering what assets might be acquired or liquidated through online channels. If a freight train could be successfully purchased online, what other major industrial equipment or infrastructure might also be accessible through digital marketplaces? The case also illustrated how e-commerce was breaking down traditional geographical limitations in business. Before digital platforms, finding and purchasing such specialized equipment would have required extensive travel, in-person networking, and access to industry-specific channels that were often closed to outsiders. Online marketplaces democratized access to these opportunities, making them visible to anyone with internet access and the resources to act on them. Perhaps most importantly, Pashkevich's purchase demonstrated that the true limitations in e-commerce were no longer technological, but rather matters of imagination, expertise, and willingness to navigate complex logistics and regulatory requirements. Years after the purchase, Pashkevich's audacious acquisition continues to resonate as both a business case study and a symbol of entrepreneurial vision. The legacy of this transaction extends far beyond the immediate media attention it received. In the business world, it has become a reference point for discussions about unconventional asset acquisition and the expanding scope of e-commerce. Logistics companies cite it when discussing their capabilities for handling extreme transportation challenges. The purchase has inspired other entrepreneurs to think more expansively about potential opportunities that might appear impractical at first glance. It demonstrated that with sufficient determination, expertise, and resources, seemingly impossible transactions can be successfully executed. For the transportation industry specifically, this case highlighted the potential for private ownership and operation of major rail assets, potentially opening new models for railway operation in regions traditionally dominated by state-owned enterprises. The online platform where Pashkevich found the train listing saw increased interest from industrial buyers seeking unusual or large-scale equipment. This led to expanded offerings of major industrial assets across various e-commerce platforms, creating new marketplaces for items that previously changed hands only through specialized, closed industry channels. Perhaps most importantly, this story serves as a powerful reminder that the digital transformation of commerce is far from complete. As technology continues to evolve and global logistics networks become increasingly sophisticated, the boundaries of what can be bought and sold online will continue to expand in ways we might not yet imagine. Pashkevich's train purchase, once considered extraordinary, may someday be viewed as just an early example of the true potential of global e-commerce. Vasiliy Pashkevich's extraordinary $70 million online purchase of a freight train represents far more than just an unusual shopping story. It stands as a testament to human ingenuity, determination, and vision in the digital age. What began with a simple discovery on an industrial equipment website evolved into a complex international operation involving multiple countries, countless regulatory hurdles, and logistical challenges that would have deterred most buyers. Yet through careful planning, specialized expertise, and unwavering commitment, Pashkevich transformed what seemed impossible into reality. This remarkable achievement has permanently expanded our understanding of what's possible in e-commerce and global logistics. It demonstrates that in today's interconnected world, the traditional limitations of distance, size, and complexity can be overcome with the right approach and resources. As we look to the future, Pashkevich's story reminds us that the true boundaries of digital commerce are defined not by technology, but by our imagination and willingness to pursue ambitious goals. In a world where we increasingly take online shopping for granted, this tale of a Russian businessman who clicked purchase on an entire freight train serves as an inspiring reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary achievements begin with the simplest of actions. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for updates. Your feedback is appreciated. We hope to see you again.